You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
The Missouri basketball Tigers fall in Starkville, and we are here to talk about it. Hello and welcome into Mizzou. That's who, your podcast from Missouri Athletics here on KC Sports Network. As always, I'm joined by Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. Gabe, is the world ending because the Missouri Tigers lost in Starkville, Mississippi?
By the time you hear this podcast, probably yes. An apocalypse has hit us. Tucker, you promised me excited Tucker voice. That was more voice that was merited by the loss in Starkville than excited voice. But it was hard to get excited about. I mean, I'm not going to say otherwise. It was as exciting as the broadcast seemed with that SEC network gem.
Oh yeah, you always get a great broadcast. You always get ESPN's best foot forward on the SEC network. We know that. Maggie, how are you doing this week?
Good. It was funny because I was looking at the score of the game and I was about to be like, well, how could Tucker get excited about a 20-point loss? Yeah. They only lost by 11, but for some reason it felt like we lost by like 30. So, I mean, I kind of understand the tone that you're going for, Tucker.
I was trying to get up to excite people to listen to this podcast and want them to listen to it further. And listen, I can only do so much. I can only do my 1/11. I gotta have some other factors outside of my control help us.
Wait, if you're saying more of this is going to be on me and Maggie, that might be an issue.
No. I'm saying more of this is on the Missouri basketball Tigers.
Okay,
this is on. Because as you guys mentioned, 63-52 loss in Starkville. Only one game to talk about. We're doing a little tight turnaround podcast just to get back on our normal schedule here, just to get thrown off our normal schedule again when the Chiefs win the Super Bowl next week. So manifesting it out right now, just going to go ahead and then put those good vibes out there. There's no such thing as jinxes either. That's something that I like to stand on. So
certainly not for many of us.
No.
I mean,
what am I going to say on a Missouri basketball podcast that's going to make the Chiefs do anything different? Nothing.
That's like, my favorite is always when you start talking about what they need to do to make the tournament. Well, they just got to take the next game. No, I know but like me, internet guy, I could talk about 2029. It's not.
Well, it's one of my favorite things on Twitter is whenever like fans of other fan bases like come at you for like the fan base you are, and I'm like, you literally have nothing to do with the game that's being played on the field, my guy. Like absolutely nothing. So you're talking smack to me about whoever beat us, Tennessee fans beating us by 40. I'm like, I don't really care. You didn't play the game.
No, we'll get into a little bit of bracketology as well, because we can do that. Dennis Gates isn't going to, but we can get into it. So let's talk about this Mississippi State game. We were talking before the podcast started. Nothing good for Missouri athletics happens in Starkville, Mississippi. They've played them in football twice. We looked this up. Since joining the SEC, Missouri has played them in football twice, lost to them twice, one of those times being in the SEC. Gabe, how many games has it been since Missouri has beat Mississippi State?
They have lost, I believe, 7 in a row, but they are 1-9 all time in Starkville.
There you go.
They won 78-36 their first year in the SEC. They unfortunately could not bank any of those 42 points for future trips to Starkville because they might have come in handy at times.
Well, yeah, if all we had to do was score 70 points to win, it would have helped, but we didn't even really get close to 70 points. What's the record?
Really,
I mean, we're 16-0 when we've scored 70, right?
Yes. And the games in Starkville, I mean, this was the closest one. They lost by 11 last week. Last year, they lost by 19. The year before that, they lost by 15. The year before that, they lost by 27. The year before that, they lost by 19. This is the second closest game they've ever played in Starkville, actually. They lost 52-43 one time. So one time they have lost by fewer than 10 in Starkville.
That's an incredibly sad statistic. Now,
I mean, to be fair, Mississippi State is the greatest program in the history of college basketball. It's to be expected. You don't just go to the hump and walk out a single-digit loser.
Maybe we should start singing about Mississippi State and Mr. Brightside instead, and maybe
Right.
Yeah, that means too many syllables.
I feel like F Mississippi State would be tough to fit in.
It would be a lot of words, but if anybody can do it, I'm sure the student section could figure it out.
Yeah.
You're going to have to say Mississippi really fast. You're going to have to get through that one real quick. You have to make that one syllable. No, but again, Missouri drops to 17-6 on the year, 5-5 in SEC play. Listen, and this Mississippi State team isn't necessarily, Gabe, as you mentioned, sarcastically said, that this isn't like the cream of the crop of SEC basketball, this Mississippi State team. They're 15-8 on the year, 3-7 in league SEC play. So they hadn't played very well against SEC teams, but they played well against the Missouri Tigers on Saturday. And, you know, you can only do so much.
They're also not awful, though. I mean, they pushed Alabama. They pushed Tennessee. They are ranked higher than Missouri in the net. They were, according to KenPom, they were going to win this game. According to, I don't understand how you can predict, right, that they have a 71% chance to win, but that's what the SEC Network said. Mississippi State had a 71% chance. They were favorites in Vegas. Like, I feel like this is a game Missouri fans thought they should win, but everyone outside of Missouri fans said this was a game they should lose.
And they're just like any other team right now in the SEC, is that they play really well at home and they don't play that great on the road. I mean, they just beat TCU at home days ago, or a week ago.
If you take away Tennessee and Alabama, do you know what the cumulative record of SEC road teams is?
I kind of forgot, but I did read it on Power Mizzou today.
It's 25-55. I mean, it's like they win 2 out of every 7 games on the road. Missouri's record is actually better than the league-wide road record at 2-4.
And okay, so we talked about this a little bit before you came on the podcast, and you asked Coach Gates why it's hard to win on the road, or why he can't win on the road.
I just asked why it's hard. Yeah, I didn't ask him what just in general in college basketball why it's hard. And what I got out of his answer was that it's hard. And I didn't really get any specific details as to what. But here's the weird thing about Saturday. A lot of times it's hard to win on the road because the refs make it hard to win on the road, right? The other team shoots a lot more free throws. They get caught up in the crowd. They don't give you calls. I will give Missouri fans a ton of credit. I've not had one person blame officiating for Saturday. Like, I don't think the officiating played any part in that game. That was just a team that was shooting lights out all of a sudden woke up and could not shoot at all.
Yeah, well, and it's not like Mississippi State shot lights out. They shot, 42% from the field. Fine, whatever. They went 3 for 20 from 3. It's not like they killed us. I mean, we just couldn't make anything. And, we'll credit Mississippi State's defense a little bit. I believe that they're one of the better defensive teams in the SEC anyways. But you just can't go cold like that. I mean, that's the same shots we've been making.
Well, and I thought the disappointing part of that was not necessarily starting 1 for 19 from 3 or whatever, because, look, sometimes that happens. But they had that to a 5-point gain and then went 1 for 4 from the free throw line. Mm-hmm. And, literally as soon as DeMoy Hodge missed 2 threes, I tweeted, I said, that feels like that's going to matter. And immediately Mississippi State was just back up 9. And Missouri never really had much of a push again. But they had gotten it down to where if Hodge goes 2 for 2, it's a 1-possession game. And like Maggie said, it seemed like they were down 20 most of the game. And they were right there. And they just missed free throws.
It's huge. Looking at Mississippi State's KenPom adjusted defense, they're 6th in the country. And so, I mean, that's a.
But so was Iowa State. That's a very similar team to Iowa State, and Missouri lit up Iowa State.
Iowa State also just beat Kansas. That
Iowa State, yeah.
Right. It was at Iowa. They've beat Kansas. They've now beat Kansas and Kansas State both at home. Which, I mean, 2 top 10 programs. And Missouri beat them handedly at home. So there is something to playing at home. Obviously, it's clear. If you were ever in doubt that there wasn't a home court advantage of basketball, you should now be aware because, number 1 Purdue fell to Indiana at home. So, I mean, there's a lot of lot of factors going against teams on the road. And, Missouri still had 3 double-digit scores. DeAndre Golson, 12 points. Demoy Hodge and Kobe Brown had 11 and 10 points, respectively. And Mo Daria had 10 boards. That's a lot of boards. That's a lot of rebounds. Good to see that guy get in there and get some boards.
Well, that game, the disappointing part about that game is you went in going, okay, the way you lose this game is if their defense is really good and you can't shoot, and if Tolu Smith kills you. And that's exactly how they lost the game. And I think it's frustrating for people to go, okay, this is the thing you can't do, and then that's what happens. And like, I know a lot of people were upset about the substitutions, and the lineups were weird to me. But the way Gates explained it is he basically didn't want Kobe guarding Tolu Smith, because what he didn't want is for Kobe to be out of the game with 2 fouls in a minute 20, right? Yeah. Well, it turns out it was Noah Carter.
Yeah, he had 3 fouls
in a minute 20. And then they just had too many guys. I mean, Mo Diarra, Mabor Majak, Caleb Brown. When you're playing those guys, you're playing 4-on-5 offensively.
Yeah.
And like a lot of Missouri fans said, where's Aiden Shaw? Well, Aiden Shaw doesn't fix you offensively right now. He's not, he other than getting a putback and dunking it, he's not bringing a lot offensively. Gates said today he's not rebounding well enough, and that's why he didn't play. But I don't know. I think the solution in hindsight would have been, because when they made the comeback, it was Kobe and 4 guards, and they just played their style and forget what Mississippi State brings. And had they done that from the start, maybe it's a different game. So you can fault the game plan, but like, Dennis Gates has done a lot of things right. He's allowed to get one wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, your lineup's a little weird when Diarra and Caleb Brown are on the court at the same time. It's just a weird, I don't know. But I will say, a good thing is that you kind of realize in these games where we're not shooting well, is you do have a player like DeAndre Golston step up. He's a very good one-on-one player. You see it all the time. I know some people will say certain things, and I get it. He has some games that are better than other games. He just can't do it by himself. He's not a player like Kobe who can win the game and kind of carry you. He's an accent player. So when he's the one that's doing everything in the game, that's a problem.
Well, and the problem I thought was they only really have 2 guys who can get the ball and go get their own shot. And that's Golston and Isaiah Mosley. Those guys had 7 turnovers on Saturday. I mean, they got their own shot sometimes, but they also got in the lane and gave the ball away line. Golston had 3 and Mosley had 4. And I know it's unpopular to criticize Isaiah's play with the fan base, but he was not good on Saturday. And Golston was okay, but a lot of what he gave you, he took away with 3 turnovers too. You get 7. I mean, if Missouri loses the turnover battle, they're not going to beat very many teams at all. And they lost it.
Yeah. We talked about that. We talk about that a lot, actually. Just they're going to get out rebounded, so they have to really win the turnover battle. They have to win literally everything else for the game to kind of go in the direction that they needed to go. And I kind of want to talk about the reaction after this game, because I think sometimes I'll throw myself into this, especially with basketball. You forget that it's not football, right? That not your season doesn't hinge on one singular game, and I think that sometimes we fall into that a little bit, especially with the rise of the popularity of the NFL and college football as a whole. Each week means a lot. I think that's why people latch onto football. That's why they like it, because every game means something. In basketball, not so much. I think every game has some meaning, but not every game is do or die. You still look at Joe Lunardi's bracketology. Missouri is still a 7th seed after that loss. So, I mean, it's not like in the grand scheme of things, the loss to Mississippi State is going to completely derail this program and their growth and what they've been able to do this year. But I do think that it is frustrating to lose to Mississippi State once again. But I think that we need to kind of take a step back and just put it in perspective.
I overall was relatively impressed with the reaction to I didn't get a lot of freaking out. There was some, but also realized that 3 days ago, the people freaking out about this were mad that Dennis Gates doesn't have an extension on his desk yet. So it's a little bit of a roller coaster. But and Gates said today, and if you look around college basketball, the elite teams, the top 10 or 15 teams in the country are going to lose like 4 or 5 times, probably. And that's about it. Other than that, like, you're going to lose games like this one, and you're going to, like, they're flawed. They're not perfect. But they're still ahead of where I think any of us thought they were going to be 3 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
I think most of us were probably not looking forward to basketball season. I mean, I look forward to it every year because you're a hope as a fan, like you're hopeful. But the realistic part of me, I guess the Gabe side of me, would be like, I don't know. I don't think this is going to be very fun. It's been a lot more fun than any of us thought it would be.
I thought their ceiling was the bubble. And maybe getting in, if they won a couple of the right games. But I thought the ceiling for this team was like, I don't know, maybe sneak in as a 10 seed.
I don't know if the tournament was really even on my radar. You guys know this. I'd called this basketball team the best JUCO team in the SEC. I did say mid-major. Yeah, you're right. I tried to give them less credit than I already did it out front. But and I do think that was going to be one of those things. I thought there were going to be a lot of growing pains. Not to say that there aren't growing pains this year. I thought there'd be a lot more than they already had. Especially with a roster that had been all new together. Nobody really knows anything about each other, and then they come in and they look like they've been playing ball together for a while. I think that's a testament to Dennis Gates and how he's been able to get his team ready to go, and been really happy with how this team has played this year. Look, I mean, they're comfortably a 7 seed in the Joe Lunardi bracketology that I'm seeing here. So it's one of those things that if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that they would be comfortably into the tournament, I would have thought, okay, did Isaiah Mosley go off? What's going on? Like what would be the big storyline? But Kobe Brown developing the way that he did, I don't know if I would have necessarily projected that to be the way he's gone. But I'm glad that it is. Honestly, glad that the storyline is progressing in the way that it has.
And not only comfortably in the tournament, but should remain comfortably in the tournament, barring kind of the wheels falling off, honestly. Now, the way the schedule plays out it's gonna be hard on Missouri fans because you got South Carolina at home. Look, you can't lose that, right? I mean, you absolutely cannot. But then the next 2 games are at Tennessee and at Auburn, and realistically, they're probably going to lose both of those games. So they're going to be sitting 6-7 in the league and 18-8 overall. And I think a lot of Missouri fans are going to think, oh my God, like all the momentum's going the wrong way. We're in so much trouble. It's just the way the schedule plays out, because then you get Texas A&M and Mississippi State at home. You get LSU and Georgia on the road and Ole Miss at home. Like, those are 5 games that you could finish on a 5-game winning streak. And so with 8 games left, if Missouri goes 4-4, they're going to be in the tournament. I mean, fairly. There are 93 people that do brackets right now, and Missouri is in the tournament in all 93. So, like 92 of them might be wrong sometimes, but I don't think they're all wrong usually.
And I know winning on the road is hard, but I'm going to go ahead and say the Tennessee game is pretty close to unwinnable. I don't think the Auburn game is unwinnable. I mean, it's going to be hard, obviously. We don't play well on the road, but I wouldn't say, I mean, they're unranked now. They've lost a few the past few weeks. I don't think it's unwinnable, but we're definitely going to have to play some of our better basketball to win that game.
So here's the question for you guys. Had I told you on November 1st or whatever, that we get to February, what's today, February 7th, I think? 6th. We get to February 6th, okay. And the 2 teams in the country that have the most similar tournament resume to Missouri are Auburn and Duke. What do you think?
I would think, what happened to Auburn and Duke?
Right. You either think that, like, those 2 programs were set on fire, or, oh my God, how is Missouri this good, right? But if you look at the home records, the road records, the split, the net ranking, the quad wins, they're almost identical to those 2 teams. Like, those 3 teams are virtually the same profile, other than the line on the front of the jersey.
I think North Carolina's thrown in there too.
Yeah, they're probably like
there's another one in there. And Yeah, I would have never guessed that, but I would say we're right in the middle of that. Like we obviously haven't played fantastically, and we haven't played horribly, and Duke and North Carolina and all them haven't played horribly. I'd say we're right in the middle. They're underperforming. We're overperforming.
I just think, especially when it comes to like getting in the NCAA tournament, I think fans get tunnel vision a lot and only look at their team and don't maybe pay as much attention to everything else that's going on around the country. And all of a sudden you figure out, oh, wait, actually, like we're better than I thought we were. I just didn't watch 27 games of that other team.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting down the stretch here. You already mentioned the schedule, having 4 home games, 4 road games. South Carolina on Tuesday, that 8 p.m. tip-off, the midnight tip-off, essentially. Will be, Gabe, as you pointed out, I believe the last 8 p.m. tip-off in Mizzou Arena this season.
Yeah, I mean, we can't account for, surely they'll probably play the 8:20 game in the SEC tournament. That actually starts at 9:15 because that's how that goes. But look, you can't lose this game. I mean, it's not optional. South Carolina is not a good team, but they won at Kentucky. They almost beat Arkansas on Saturday. Like, you got to pay attention, but you can't lose this game.
Right. And then they follow that up with going on the road to Tennessee, which you guys, Maggie, you already mentioned, going to be a tough one to win.
How many points is Missouri going to score at Tennessee? I mean, like Tennessee just scored 46-1.
That game was terrible. That was I was watching that game, and rightfully so, I switched over and I watched the Purdue-Indiana game because it was way better than the, I didn't even care at that point. But I think their combined threes were, I mean, I don't even know how many they made total. It wasn't very many. It was just a bunch of missed shots the entire game.
So if you can drive over to Lenexa and place a prop bet, the last 2 years, Tennessee football has scored 62 and 66 on Missouri. Will the winning team on Saturday have more than 66 points? Because I would take the under.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think I'd take the over on that one. I'm just looking, what is it? Do you have their points per game in front of you for Tennessee?
No, but I have Google, so if you give me a minute,
you pretty much have it in front of you at that point. Because I was looking up.
I did want to say those threes though. Okay, so Auburn went 3 for 27 shooting 3, and Tennessee went 2 for 21.
Oof.
2 for 37 and 2 for 21. 9%
Tennessee
and 11%.
Tennessee is averaging 72.3 points a game. So
interesting. Number 1 defense, according to the Kim Palm's adjusted defense. Number 60th adjusted offense, according to Kim Palm, for Tennessee. As we all know, Missouri has, I believe, the number 6th. I think it's
it was at 1 point. Yeah, I don't know if it still is.
Number 8 at the adjusted offense.
Saturday might have dinged that just a little bit.
Yeah, just a bit.
That was quite inefficient.
Hey, their defensive rating did go up to 174 in the country. That was at 188, I think, when we recorded this last Thursday. So they went up a little bit. But yeah, no, I think that this is going to be ugly. Not going to be a fun basketball game to watch.
But you never know. Like,
right, that's another thing.
I mean, because like Maggie said, they just missed a bunch of shots that they made this year, right? Like, so I don't know. Maybe they go 15 for 35 from 3-point range in Knoxville. I can't figure out this team. I mean, I've said literally their ceiling is a Final Four. If they get the right matchups and they get hot, they could make a Final Four. They also could absolutely lose to almost anybody that they'll play in the first round.
The bracketology from Joe Lenardi has them facing USC in the first round.
They could lose to it.
I admittedly don't know much about the USC Trojan basketball program.
I could not name a single player.
I couldn't. Listen, Pac-12 football is already hard enough to stay up for. You think I'm going to stay up for a Pac-12 basketball game? No chance. No chance I'm going to do that. But yes, should be a lot of Southeast Missouri State is on the bubble right now. It looks like it's in the
No, they're not.
So it says 16-18 bracket, Southeast.
Well, that's like it. They're in as like an automatic bid. There's no way Southeast Missouri State is getting an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament.
It's probably fair. It's also a playing game that they're getting in. AQ is automatic qualifier. Okay, yes. Joe Lunardi has Southeast Missouri State winning their conference tournament, is what it is.
Okay.
That makes a little bit more sense. If I would have just read the legend before I started talking, this would have gone a whole lot smoother. But
That's what you got Gabe for.
I know.
I mean,
Called me out on it.
if you do like actual research before the podcast sucks. It's way more fun to just say things and have no idea if they're actually true.
Let people call us out on it, you know? Let people go along with the researches, like if I just asked you what their points per game are. If I would have researched that beforehand, that wouldn't have been as exciting as if we would have just looked it up live.
Gotta fill the time somehow.
Right, we gotta get to our allotted time somehow. But no, I think that this upcoming week, this upcoming schedule is going to be, Gabe, as you mentioned, gonna be an interesting one with some good teams and some games that they certainly should win. But when it's all said and done, you know, I already mentioned Joe Lunardi has them as a 7 seed playing USC in Denver. Do you think, Gabe, that seeding changes much?
I think it has the potential to. I mean, I think the ceiling is about a 5. And that would involve probably winning at Auburn, I think. The floor, I mean, I don't know, if you lose at LSU and at Georgia, and then you let A&M come in here and win, the floor is still like, I guess you could really be sweating on Selection Sunday, you know? It's not impossible, but I think that would take this team playing worse in the last month than it has in the first 3.
Gabe again leaving us speechless. No, I think that's very fair. I think when I see a 7 seed, I still in my brain is not fully formed to think that this team is a 7 seed yet, just because I am still expecting the worst to happen and expecting the floor to fall out at any moment. But I do think that that would be a good first step for Dennis Gates in this program, is to not only qualify for the tournament, be a 7 seed in the tournament would be good. And as Kobe mentioned when we talked to him earlier this year, winning that tournament game, getting a game that they could win would be a big hurdle to get over, especially in year 1 for Dennis.
It has been like, we're going to see a lot of that Titanic. It's been 84 years theme, right? Because hasn't been 84 years, but we are coming up on 4,800 days since Missouri won an NCAA tournament.
Yeah, we're at over a decade, easily.
Yeah. It was, I always have to look up the date. I think it was March 19th, 2010, because it was not Mike Anderson's last year. But I believe his next to last year, they beat Clemson. So it might be 2011. It'd been a minute.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not realize it was that long. But that tracks. I remember when we talked to CY about a lot of stuff in that podcast. But when he mentioned coaching for Florida State and playing against Missouri, and I believe that game was that the game in Nashville, correct?
Yeah.
That was 2019.
It was the Porter year, 2018.
That's right. Yeah. Talking about that tournament game. There's been a lot of tournament games I've buried deep in my memory, never to think about again.
Yeah, they lost to Larry Eustace and Colorado State one year.
Cincinnati, obviously Norfolk State, which is probably one of them that you.
And then Oklahoma in the COVID tournament.
Oklahoma. Just some teams that Mizzou should not lose to.
But why should they not lose to Oklahoma, though?
What?
But why should they not lose to Oklahoma?
I mean, do you think that Oklahoma, like, overall, like, program history, I'm not saying that Mizzou is a juggernaut. I'm not saying that. But would you say that overall Mizzou is a better program than Oklahoma?
I would not.
Okay.
But I grew up with Billy Tubbs and Mookie Blaylock and Stacey King and Wayne Tisdale, and when they were number. I mean, they made the national title game in '88. They had the Blake Griffin years, you know.
Yeah, we beat them at home when Blake Griffin came. Because I was a student, so I got to watch that.
But But no, I would not say that Missouri is. If Missouri is a better program, I would certainly not say it's like better to the point that you go, well, they shouldn't lose to Norfolk State. Fair, should not lose to Norfolk State. And absolutely agree with that. But
Well, the children.
Maybe I'll look up. Maybe post podcast, I'll look up some things and see like overall.
Because like I think there's a lot of Missouri fans that would say we should not lose to Mississippi State in basketball. Dude, all you do is lose to Mississippi State in basketball. It's like you perfected losing to Mississippi State in basketball.
Maybe it's because Oklahoma's like a football school, and so you're just like, they don't put anything into their basketball program. Maybe it's just like a feeling. I don't know.
Was that Porter Moser's first year there?
I think that's correct. Maybe, yeah.
I'm not
the COVID year, but it's like but also Maggie, like Tucker and I were talking about this right before you jumped on. What you're saying there, like we should never lose to that team. Like that's what most teams in the SEC say about Missouri in football, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, we should never lose it. Like,
I hear it all the time.
Why should you never lose to them?
Yeah,
so
that's all South Carolina fans, Arkansas fans say. It's the only thing I ever hear out of them. Why? It's like they'll be like, because we had a Heisman 30 years ago, or like they'll look at some weird stats. And I'm like, I don't think that's viable.
But that's also like, I mean, why should Missouri never lose to that team? Well, because Norm was here. Dude, that's been a minute now. You know, like, I mean, and Missouri's had, don't get me wrong, Missouri's had some good teams since then. But the fact of the matter is, like, I don't think Missouri's had a good, it's been 12 years since they've had a sustained basketball program. 10 years anyway.
Yeah, 10.
It's been a minute. Been quite a while. I was just looking at another bracketology because 'tis the season, you know, of looking at bracketology. By the way, that was not Porter. That was whoever was at Oklahoma prior to Porter Moser.
Lon Kruger.
That was just last year. That's what that was. And I'm looking at the CBS bracketology now from Jerry Palm. He has Missouri a 6 seed going up against Boise State. I think
he had it as a 5 seed last week, and I didn't quite get that.
I think it's a little rich. But.
Yeah, that seemed a little bit high to me. Also, it just struck me that we started this podcast by making fun of people about how the world was ending, and then I just went on like a 2-minute talk about how bad Missouri's basketball program has been for 10 years. So I didn't mean to strike that note on this podcast.
Listen,
you listeners, thanks, Gabe.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it was wrong. I would have stopped you. No, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have done that. But yeah. Anything else before we move on? I don't think anything's happened in the football world since we last recorded. Rare. That's a rare occurrence that we have a time in between podcasts where football doesn't make any noise.
Missouri is going to have the earliest spring game I've ever seen, though. I saw a graphic on Twitter from Atia Ellison. The spring game is March 18th. It is feasible if Missouri wins a game in the NCAA tournament that spring football is over before basketball season is over.
That's incredible.
Which also is great for me because it means I don't actually have to cover spring football at all.
We do that every year, though. I remember we did it last year. A bunch of people were asking me, or a bunch of like other teams were really like, "Hey, when's Mizzou spring game?" I was like, "Oh, we did it like a month and a half ago."
It was the day after the bowl game. They just came back and played the spring game the next day.
They were still well practiced at that. Maybe not well, but
yeah,
that's the best way to do it. And I do think it's going to be interesting too. I saw Gabe, but there was I think Gerard wrote something about the going through position by position in spring ball. Quarterbacks was obviously a big one to talk about and to look at that position moving forward. So make sure you go check that out on powermizzou.com.
Yeah, do that. I should read that, shouldn't I?
It's good.
I could check that out. Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. Had a tight turnaround. Only had one game to talk about, but we'll be back next week sometime. Probably I'm going to guesstimate a Tuesday recording of an episode, but might get a little tight there with just the way the Missouri's basketball schedule is because I believe they have another Tuesday game they do on Valentine's Day. They're playing on Valentine's Day against Auburn next week. So we will be back then to talk about some more Mizzou hoops. And by the time I'm sure we record again, Missouri football will do something. They have to, or
Maybe.
they will.
It's slow time.
Wait, are you guys picking a Super Bowl winner or no?
I mean, I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win by 10.
I think I picked 31-23 this morning, Chiefs. So we'll I don't know. I'd say cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. I'm going to say a field goal because I feel like that's win by a field goal.
It's what they do.
Yeah. It's how it feels lately. I don't know.
I'm gonna predict a Kelsey wins.
I would say if you are a gambler, I would say take a Kelsey touchdown. I feel like that's a nice little safe bet. If you lose, don't blame me because you still made the choice. But I would say, a Kelsey TD is looking pretty good.
That's a great point. Over under on this game set at 50.5 points. So that is going to be, they're projecting quite a lot of points. The Eagles are favored by 1.5. Travis Kelsey, anytime touchdown score is a -125. So Vegas expects him to score a touchdown, as well as they expect Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders to score touchdowns as well. So right there, Vegas is already anticipating 3 touchdowns scored by those 3 gentlemen. So that would be 7, 14, 21. Yeah, that's well on their way to their over total that they have set. So lots of prop bets going on right now at DraftKings Sportsbook. You can download the app, use code KCSN. Get some goodies.
Just to tie it back into Missouri, we bet on a Nick Bolton takeaway.
I like that.
Can you do
He's a captain for the Super Bowl, right?
Oh yes,
Love it.
I'm looking right now at his. Let's look at his. Does he have a sack prop? No, he doesn't have a sack prop. I'm sure he has a tackles prop. Over under 10.5 tackles for Nick Bolton to round out the podcast. Gabe, what do you got?
I hope it's over because that means he's tackling a running back a lot more than Justin Reed and Juan Thornhill are tackling a running back, and I would prefer that Nick Bolton be making tackles. So I will just hope for the over without offering any gambling advice and then having to give a disclaimer like Maggie did. If you lose your money, it's still your fault because you're an idiot and I'm not an idiot.
Hey, I never claimed to be a betting professional, okay? Just giving some insight. Just giving a little non-professional insight. But go back and look at the games that Travis Kelsey scored a touchdown, and if you want to bet against that, you can do that too.
7 tackles for Nick Bolton last week, but last game against the Bengals. 14 combined tackles for Nick Bolton against the Jaguars. Holy cow. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Was it 24 combined? Oh, wait, no. I messed it up. He had 16 combined tackles. I was adding the wrong number. Against the Raiders, which, incredible. That's a great day at the office. So I thought it was said solo and assisted 16-8. And I said, hang on a second. That's incredible. So 10.5, I think, very good line. Shocker. These people are good at their jobs who are setting lines over at DraftKings. I'm going to take the over as well. And I hope you took the over on minutes on this podcast because we have hit it. So thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Mizzou That's Who here on KC Sports Network. Be a friend, tell a friend about the Mizzou That's Who podcast. We'll be back next week talking about a few Missouri Tigers basketball games. So until then, without feeling, please.
Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network, the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. Check out these videos that feature our team of more than 15 former players, insiders, and analysts bringing you the best Chiefs coverage you can find. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.